There, and welcome once again. Next module. This one, I think we're going to go over a little bit of a review right now. We've covered a lot of stuff and covered a lot of ground, so we need to kind of take stock of where we are and where we've been. So by now, we now know 4 chords in the key of G. One of the ones we've just learned was a C add 9. So we went through that. You can either play it like this. Come up close on that one. You can play it like this. Or you can tuck your baby finger underneath, play it like that. Very similar to the G that we've been playing, like that. Or like that, same thing. The other thing we learned about the C add 9 is that you need to deaden the open E. And so we've done that either with this finger here, spilling over and killing it like that, or using our thumb over the top to deaden the string, or both. So that's how we've done that. We also learned a D, and one thing we learned about the D is that it does have a pivoting finger off of the either C add 9 or the G, and that is this one here. The main difference is that when you pivot with this, you pivot with the fingers changing, but the pivoting finger that stays the same actually curls up, and then those 2 fingers hammer down to give you your D. So just remember that. There's your G, and if we go to D, it curls up automatically. Same thing with a C add 9. Now, like I said, we've learned 4 chords. The first one, of course, is our good old E minor, G, C add 9, and D. We've also learned about common forms, and the fact that even with a G there's a common form, and when you go from a G of this fingering to C add 9, you have these 2 as a common form. So, let's see, we also learned our first strum, and that was basically 1, miss, 1, 2, miss, 1, 2, 3. 1, miss, 1, 2, miss, 1, 2, 3. And it becomes this. So we've learned that. We've also employed, again, because we're missing, that creates a rhythmic rest. And we talked about that, the fact that in order to get a feel for some sort of rhythm or groove that you're trying to create, you can't just use eighth notes, or you can't just use quarter notes, because it becomes boring after a while. So you have to either insert a miss, like this, or you could also insert a chop, and we talked about that. So if we went to our G, there's our G, and so we could insert a chop on a G, and you would do that like this. And again, a chop is nothing more than that. So it's so that's how we do a chop. We also went over the musical alphabet and how it goes from A to G, and then after G it repeats again. So it continues on from G to A to B and so on. And how there are holes in between certain notes. So basically the best way to remember that is there's holes between every note, every letter, except B and C are stuck together and E and F are stuck together. We also talked about movable power chords on this the 6-string root. So you've got your low note is on your 6th string, so that's called a 6-string root. and then your next note is the next string up, the 5th string, 2 frets higher, and how it's movable. So as you move up, every one of those is a chord. We also talked about a full power chord, and what we're doing with a full power chord is we're introducing an extra note. And what's that extra note? Well, we talked about this with the E minor. That extra note, there's a simple power chord, and that extra note is up here. Now what's interesting about this extra note is if you look where it is in comparison to the first note that you hit, and 2 frets higher. Well, we know that these are tuned to 5, and these are tuned to 5, so this is 5 frets difference. If you go from here to here, that's 10 frets difference, and if you add 2 more, it's 12 fret difference. And what we've said about a 12 fret difference is that it's an octave. So if I play this note here, the low note, and this note on the D string, those are both E's. Those are both F's, both F sharps, both G's, both G sharps, both A's, and so on and so on. So I think that's it for the review for now, but keep in mind as we move on to the next module what we just talked about with octaves, because we're going to show you how to learn all the notes of the entire fretboard, and all you have to do is start off knowing all the notes on the low E string and the low A string. And by knowing all those notes, which is basically just straight up here, you'll know all the rest of the notes on the remaining 4 strings. So we'll get to that in the next module.